has come off the bottom there. What is happening, everyone? Thanks for tuning back into today's video. How's your week been? To be honest, my week, this has been the quietest week I've had this whole year, and it honestly couldn't have come at a better time with the weather like this that we've had this week. Brilliant. So I worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I didn't have anything booked in on Thursday and Friday, and I just kept it that way. Having said that, so I'm recording this on a Saturday. I had a call last night, Friday evening, for someone's boiler went down. It was just low pressure. I did a video call with them, tried to talk them through it. They were panicking, they didn't know what to do. The boiler was up in a loft and there wasn't proper lighting or anything. So I ended up quickly running out there today and topping up the pressure for them basically. Other than that, I am off this coming week, the first week of the Easter break with the kids. I've still got content to put out. This is why I do a backlog of content, so that even during the holiday period, I can still churn it out. So there will still be a video coming on Wednesday as well, so don't worry if you are worried. If you're probably not worried, doesn't matter. But yeah, I just wanted to see how everyone else's week has been. If you've also found it's getting a little bit quieter, I think the main thing to remember is do not panic when it gets quiet, because when it's busy, we're wishing for some time off. When we get some quiet time, we're wishing for it to be busy. It's the never-ending cycle of being self-employed. So just take the downtime and enjoy it. That's all I'll say. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys all soon. First job, I believe it's a glowworm from the video that's been sent to me, and I think there's a problem with the plates being blocked. So let's go inside and let's have a look and see what we discover. First things first, you can see my van from there, so that's good. Now, it is a glowworm Ultracom 24CXI. Very strange what is going on here because, well, first and foremost, it's not happening whilst I'm here. Typical. Intermittent faults, saying, the tenant showed me a video, the display on here was sort of jumping from 10 to 60. They're having difficulty or issues drawing hot water. Apparently it's making some noises, which typically it's not doing whilst I'm here. He said that the display sometimes goes blank, the numbers go to 0, then they come back up again. In the video he showed me that the pressure on there as well went to 0 and then came back up again. So these bits are indicating potentially a PCB fault, but the other stuff, let's run a hot tap now. Again, let's see what... They've had, I think someone from, I think they had a manufacturer out here. Yeah, that's fired up straight away. Oh, no, it's gone off. That's sort of jumping. I don't know. Oh, it sounds like the diverter valve was. Might ring over there for a minute. Yeah, why is that? Might ring over. Because we're asking for hot water. What's that doing there? So they said that sometimes it takes about 10 minutes or to get hot water. Now that could potentially be blow turbine. Oh, look, it's doing it now. Look, and that's sort of pulsing. Okay, right. With it doing all this weird and wonderful stuff, I'm gonna go with PCB because that's not doing whatsoever. Look, it's just pulsing at the moment. Now the fan's come on. That display's jumping around. It's now fired up. And I think the filling taps are busted as well. They're not working. Now the landlord's actually asked me, is it worth repairing this or is it worth putting in a new boiler? For me, personally, I don't think they need a new boiler because everything else looks, inside looks fine. A bit wear and tear. I think with some remedial works, this would be back up and running. I need to run through a few checks. I'm gonna drain the boiler up, but before I do that, I want to make sure that I can top up the pressure again because they've said that they're having difficulty topping up the pressure because of the filling taps being busted. So before I drain it out and then I'm stuck in a position where I can't top up the pressure, I'm going to try to top up the pressure a bit more first, make sure I can do that, and then I'll drain the boiler out, check the pressure sensor, make sure that's reading fine, and then go from there. So I've managed to top up the pressure. We're at 1.1 bar now. Just use the Knipex twin grips on that side. This side's turning, so that's not a problem. So I managed to top up some pressure. Now I'm going to isolate it, drain the pressure out, recharge the expansion vessel, check that the pressure sensor is all okay, and then re-top up the pressure, purge the boiler out, and then see what it does. Well, that boiler repair is not going ahead. The reason why? Landlord's opted for a new boiler. Oh, let me unlock that. By me. So that's good. I offered to repair the boiler today. Had most of the bits on the van, but we needed a PCB. So I pulled up Glowworm just to confirm my findings, where everything's, well, the display was all jumping around all over the place. The fan was sort of pulsing, diverter motor was doing weird things, and they confirmed that all of that is pointing to the PCB. Now those boards are not cheap. They are, what, about 260 quid I found it for on Wolseley. Then the filling loop is, so you can get just the tap, which was chewed up, but the actual locking mechanism was also messed up as well. So I think those, if it was just the taps and the individual sections, I think they were about maybe 20 quid, something like that. But the whole filling loop is 100 quid. So we're now looking at 350 quid plus PRV, pressure sensor, AAV, recommending all that to be changed, plus labor. And this is all the way in NW10, and I live in Romford. So obviously got to factor in time and travel as well, plus going to Park Royal from here to pick up the bits and then coming back and doing it. So I gave the customer the price for the repair, and I also gave them the price to replace the boiler. And you guys know me, and I explained the same thing to the customer. I'm not the type of person to just say you need a new boiler, because I can repair that today and it probably would have made pretty decent content. However, she's opted to go for a new boiler because that one's 14 years old, and it's also coming up to the end of the tax year as well. So she's kind of thinking in terms of maximizing tax relief and stuff like that. She said, look, peace of mind, new boiler, main eco compact's going in, so 5-year warranty, and it will help her as a tax write-off as well. So that's the plan. So it's working intermittently at the moment, and I'll be back here next Monday, taking out that glowworm and putting in a main. So the next job I've got is a thermal store. This is a Telford one. It's a tri-store, and it says mains pressure thermal store. So this is probably quite similar to the advanced appliances ones that I tend to fit. And this has got the overflow kit in it as well, which means that the reason why this has got 2-port here is because this is a manual fill. It's to stop it from overflowing. So the 2-port is controlled by this electrical box here, and that basically tells it when to turn it off in case it overflows. The problem the customer's having is no hot water. So yeah, that's stone cold just by feeling it. So that means there's no heat getting into it. Now the first thing I'm going to be looking at here, that's got a lot of silicone around it there. Let's get this off. Looks like the thermostat in there has popped out, but before I reset it, I'm just going to do some continuity checks and resistance checks to make sure that the immersion hasn't blown itself. Then we'll power it on, we'll reset it, and we'll see if we can get it up and running today. Right, so let's set this on ohms. Between those two, got 0 resistance. Now I'm going to check between my live and neutral. Let's check against that one. That's giving me 20 ohms. Now let's just check between live and earth. We want open line or like a ridiculously high reading. I mean, it's not showing anything at the moment, so that's good. Now let's check between the outgoing live and earth as well. And again, we've got nothing on there, so that's good. Now let's pop the reset button in. Now I'm going to check with the incoming live and neutral again. There we go, got a 20 ohms on the incoming, the outgoing, and yeah, there is pretty much nothing between live and earth. That's what we want. Now I'm going to put the power on and we'll actually check for voltage and make sure that it's all coming on. That's on. We put the boost on there, and you guys can't hear it, but I can really hear it working because it sounds like a kettle. You can hear that little humming noise. Let me voltage AC now. So I want to do between earth and live. Should be getting 240 there. There we go. And I mean, I don't need to check against the incoming live, but I will. There we go. And now live to neutral. There we go. And then the outgoing live to neutral. There we go. Power's back on and it's heating up. I love those ones. Go in there, reset the immersion, back up and running. All right, so we are at the next one. It's not a combi, it's a Y-plan system. So we've got a 3-port valve here, and I can tell you what the problem is pretty much straight away just by looking at it. It's the 3-port valve, but I'm gonna do some checks to double check that it is the case. Customer said to me that they've had the heating turned off from the Hive since Friday, and we are Monday today. And the fact that they've not been running the heating, have a look at that. That will tell you everything that you need to know. That zone valve is in mid position. Now, if they've not been running the heating, then that should be on W the whole time. The only time it would be on mid position is if they had the heating and the hot water running at the same time, and then the heating demand went off or the hot water demand went off, and the 3-port would stay in mid position either until both demands came back on again, or it would then either move over to H if it was just heating on without the hot water, or it would move over to W, which would be hot water without the heating. Let's run the heating. Not the heating, the hot water on the Hive. No, we don't want to boost the heat. Let's turn that off. Okay, so if we boost hot water, it says it's on at the moment, but obviously it's probably going to be satisfied from the cylinder stat. But if I just whip that off, there you go, look, that's moving over to water. That means that's fine, and I will hazard a guess that this spindle, there you go, that is seized, and that's where the problem is. So that's been stuck in mid position, and where obviously it's been running throughout winter, it's probably got jammed in the mid position where they've been running heat and hot water, and now where the weather's warmed up a bit and they don't want the heating, that spindle's still stuck in there. So I'm gonna go and get some lubricant from the van. We'll get this circlip off of there, lubricate that spindle, free it up, and if that does the trick, then we're good to go. If not, then we'll have to replace the whole 3-port valve, but hopefully I can get away with just giving a quick service on the spindle there. Right, so from around there, I've just teased off that little circlip, which you don't want to lose, so pop that somewhere safe. Now that's still not spinning, so first thing I always do is spray it up with a bit of WD-40. Let that sit for a few seconds, and then we'll tap the spindle in. Firstly, while that's there, see if we can get it moving. And that's already starting to move a bit better, but we want to get it moving by hand, not with the pair grips. There you go, look, that's already moving a lot better. But I'm not going to just leave it like that. What I'll do now is get some of this Laco oil. This is actually, it doesn't say it's fan oil, but normally uses for freeing up fans. But I'm going to put a few drops of oil in there, and I'm going to tap the spindle in so that the oil goes inside, and then spin it back and forth, and then pull it out, and in and out, so you know that all of that inside is going to get lubricated, and because it's oil, it shouldn't dry up then. Right, so I'll put a few drops of oil on there, and I'm just going to that's it. Don't want to make sure you don't lose that, because if you lose that in there, you're in a world of trouble, and then you've got to replace the whole valve. So literally that's just to get the oil in, and then pull it back out, and then just in, out, shake it all about. And you can see it's black, so that proves that there's dirt in there. So that's just pulling all the dirt out of there, but we just want to make sure that's moving nice and freely. And now I've got that moving by hand, so I'll pop the circuit back in, put it back in from the bottom because that's how it was. Right, that's in. There we go. That's still moving nice and freely. So now we'll run the hot water, make sure it stays in hot water, then we run on heating, make sure it motors over to heating, then back to hot water. So basically we want to make sure that it's moving from water, mid position, heating, so on and so forth. Let's get that back on there. Okay, right, let's do some tests. All right, heating is being boosted, is it? Where are we? 24, target 20, right, so I need to ramp that up. So now let's just see that move over to H. There you go. Sweet. There you go, look, pumps come on. And the boiler fires up for heating. So now let's turn the boost off. Now with Hives there's always a delay, so we'll see. Yeah, we go. That's flashing, so that will take a few seconds for that to turn off. And also the customer's turned off all the radiators, so we won't get any circulation from there at the moment anyway. But now let's boost the hot water. I think the hot water's on anyway, but I think the cylinder is up to temperature. It took a bit of a while, but yeah, that's motored over to W for water. So now heating's off and it's just hot water on. That's it. Just need to lubricate that spindle and just making sure there's no heat transferring down the heating side, no, so it's not passing or letting by, anything like that. Just need to service that spindle and we're done. Here we go. We have a Hive to fit here. Now this is annoying. Okay, that's not too bad because I thought someone had screwed the bottom end in there as well, but I can see that screw there is a bit loose. So all I need to do right now is loosen that off. Hopefully that's enough to happy days. That's off. Now, if all goes well, it should be a case of I will have to do a slight alteration in the wiring center. I just need to remove the wire for the mechanical stat. But other than that, hopefully that should go straight on. I think it will need a little bit of persuasion. There we go. Alright, so before I let that do its thing, cool, yeah, power off because I need to get into the wiring center just to remove the analog thermostat cable, because now that we're putting a Hive on, if you remember from one of my other videos, the Hive now just needs to connect straight to the brown on the heating zone valve. So just got to open that up, check which is the cable coming from here, so we'll take that off again. That is number 4. That's our yellow. Why is there something number 2? Shouldn't be, because it's on a S plan. What the hell is in number 2? That's not right. Well, I'm not gonna mess around with the wiring here. I just want it to work, so I'm going to double check, because what is it on number 2 on here? Heating off. That shouldn't be. But anyway, let's see what's wired in to there anyway. I've got the PCB style wiring center, which I'm actually not too fond of. I know they're meant to be easier to wire up, but in this occasion, I think it's going to be slightly different than what I'm normally used to, because normally we'd have number 4, which is heating on. I would just basically, in the wiring center, remove the room stack cable, which is that, and then wire the brown from the heating tube port straight into number 4. But I'm thinking, because this works as a PCB, I can't just take wires and link them up, but I reckon I just need to remove the room stack cables here, these 3, and then this, which is our heating on from the Hive. I think I just need to put that into number 3, which is our call from the room stat. That will then automatically send signal down to the brown and then get that to motor over. I'm going to give that a try. Okay, I just moved that up because I was struggling to get it on. So I had enough slack on the cable, so I've just moved that up. But I've just discovered a secondary fault. Now look, power's off. That's the heating zone valve. That spindle is still all the way on. Put that on. And the boiler gets a demand straight away. That's because of that. So switch that off, whip this zone valve head off, and see what's going on with that. Right, that's off. And that's still motored open, but good thing is that's moving nice and free. Looks like it has had a bit of a week or so, but that's moving nice and free by hand. So I'm going to grab a synchromotor out of the van, get that swapped out, and kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. Can you see? It's constantly micro switches pressed in, so that's just holding it in the on position. So let's get that swapped out as well and complete the job once and for all properly. Alright, that's all done, but I've just clocked something. Ooh, look at that. That has come off the bottom there. Now the question is, do I try to undo that off of there, or do I just try and wind that back in? Okay, we're back on. Let's do that. Happy days, that's what we want to see. That's bringing back now. Power on. No demand. No demand. Right, we are on to a winner now. I've got this bloody mission of getting this Hive to pair up. I hate Hives. They just take so long to pair up, but I'm hoping this doesn't. And once it does finally pair up, I will run some tests to make sure that I've wired it properly. Oh, just to show you what I've done with the wiring whilst that's searching. So I literally moved the heating on cable, which was in that row, to the demand on the room stat. So in theory, when we put the heating up from the Hive, instead of sending a power to the heating on at the programmer, which would then send power through the circuit board down to the common, and then that would flick over to the switch live, it's now from the Hive, will go straight to the switch live on the room stat terminals. That will then send power down to the brown on the heating zone valve, and that should tell the boiler to come on for heating. That's my theory in my head. I hope it works. Let's find out. It's finally paired up. Now for the main test. Heating target, what was the current set temperature? Actual is 25. That's because I'm roasting in here. You can see the sweat on my forehead. All right, let's boost up to 32. All right, we've got power there. Now, if my theory is correct, that should be motoring over. Yes! And yes. Boom ting, we're back in business. So now I'm gonna try to pair it up in the customer's app. If It's 8 o'clock, so I'll get them call Hive Technical tomorrow, which is what I normally do, and then just get them to run through the setting up of doing it remotely, getting it on the app and stuff. But my job here is done, so it was just a case of moving that heating on wire from that terminal strip over to the room stat side. That's now sending a signal to there. We will also now turn that target temperature down to 22. Does it do it automatically? There, look at that bad boy. It switched itself off. Beautiful.